Okay, we've had 3 very interesting papers and a whole lot of issues raised, and we have about half an hour available for discussion. What I thought I might do is ask first if people had specific questions of elucidation where you wanted to ask a bit more about specific things that people had said, and then have a few minutes of that if there are questions of that kind, and then move on to people raising more general issues that have been brought up by this morning's discussion. So, does anybody have any specific questions asking any of the 3 speakers to elucidate further issues that they've raised?
So what I was wondering is if consciousness is the foundation, does that then give everything some degree of consciousness, chairs, rocks, tables? And then is the question, is AI conscious, kind of a moot point because everything is a little conscious? I'd love to learn more about that distinction, whether it's emergent or whether it's foundational.
All right. Well, the rock is the hard place, isn't it? The issue that I think we really need to look at is perhaps the whole question of the emergence of consciousness may be problematic, in the sense that if we look at it in an inactive context, we can see very much what the other speakers have also pointed out, that there is an interactive interplay among energetic forces that brings about what we recognize through perception, all right? Now, the question of the artificial intelligence, because it's on a different evolutionary track and influenced by a very restricted way of talking about the mind that has emerged partly because of the problems that Eli raised, the AI is now challenging itself, or ought to challenge itself, to rethink its own existence, its own way of working, all right? And that can be helped by a dialogue with contemplatives. I think that's really what we're going for. Contemplatives in dialogue with AI, so that the problem of consciousness is no longer a hard problem, but it is an active problem, okay? Trying to get there,
Thank you. And the question over here, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Trom Tzaldorj. I'll be speaking on the 3rd day. Thank you all 3 for your wonderful presentations. I have a direct question for Nadav. This is a very fascinating model, this Dharmakirtian model. Could you maybe elaborate on practical terms, what would this mean, for example, for a large language model? Even just speculate in terms of what kind of an effect would it have that a user would perceive. That's very interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I can only speculate at this point, but one important point, I think, is that such systems won't need as much external supervision or kind of external motivation, because they will be driven by more kind of intrinsic goals, which are harmonized with how they understand reality. So, or how they, maybe understand is not a good word, but how they describe reality. I think that the last point about alignment, like having systems that pursue goals that are more consistent, more aligned, more harmonious with their environment would be one difference. And maybe another one, the Dharmakirtian model of cognition, as I understand it, also has this component which Father Tiso spoke about, of kind of evaluating our own kind of self-reflective awareness and sometimes confusing what we represent conceptually with reality. So I think that that's something that might also have important implications on AI systems. We already know that current AI systems have something that people sometimes call hallucinations. But I think that better understanding the relationship between concepts and goals will also help us understand when AI systems are pursuing kind of hallucinatory models which can be harmful, perhaps, and therefore when they should disengage from these kinds of models.
Well, thank you for this great presentation. I have a question for Nada Lamir. If I've understood well, telic states are embodied representation, and I was wondering whether this could be a limitation for AI, or would AI integrate embodied representation?
Thank you. I think that's a great question. So yes, telic states are based on the embodiment of action and observation. So it really depends on the motor and the perceptual system that the agent has. And this is another major difference between AI systems and current natural intelligence, that natural intelligence is very much embodied, as we heard, based on our biological substrate. And even Dharmakirti spoke about this level, as I understand, spoke about this level of direct perception that's almost kind of analogical or almost biological, I would say. And we don't yet have very good understanding of how to think about this kind of reasoning in AI systems. But the next wave of AI agents is probably going to be embodied, more agentic than current systems. And I think we will be facing exactly those kinds of problems in the near future.
So wonderful presentation, thank you for that. My question answer, any of the speaker can give is okay. So my question is very simple. Is Buddhism is religion, psychology, philosophy, or science? Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if that's a good point to move on to more general questions, if that wasn't general enough. Okay, well, let's say any question. The question over there? Thanks.
My question is on intention and motivation. Will AI's motivation and human motivation or intention will be in conflict at any point of time in the future?
I try to point out the notion of mythic conviction, all right? That a person connects personally with a concept or something they've read because it has an experiential impact on them. So that gives conviction. Whereas Nadav went into the notion of goal, okay? So from that conviction, you move toward a goal, the telic aspect. And these things go together. You can see how important it is to be, an embodied being with perception, with five senses, with this fleshly body, with the hormonal system, the endocrine system, and as well as your training, all right? Which is quite different from artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence will be a mirror of some of that, all right, but will not be that. So now when you get to the question of motivation, all right, motivation is something built into the machinery, all right, so that, for example, a robot will do certain tasks, okay? But that's not motivation in the same sense of, I have a conviction about what's real and true, and therefore I am going to move toward a goal. That's very, very different. So the challenge here is for AI to reach a certain point when it begins to get in touch with its own convictions and goals, all right? And that would require, in my opinion, a restructuring of the entire notion of cognition on which an AI is constructed. And we haven't gotten there yet, and I don't think even any AI system, however genial and humane and friendly it might be, has not gotten there yet. That's my opinion.
I appreciate that question a lot, and insofar as it also draws in some of the references or intentions of previous questions also. I think an important perspective to remember and asking questions about future motivations, capabilities, directions of AI, or ourselves for that matter, is to have a bit of epistemic humility and reserve, and being able to state, we don't know. I don't think anyone truly knows. We can posit a couple of useful indicators, a lot of useful factors. An important set of features that often gets overlooked in addressing questions like that is that as the AI systems that we're building, multiple among them competing against each other, being used in various different ways, they're also altering our own capacity for interacting and governing ourselves, coordinating ourselves through institutions in the process. We don't know exactly how it's going to change us any more than we understood how the advent of the internet would, or more simplistic telecommunications forms in previous generations, from telegraph, telephone, radio, all of that. All we knew is that when they sprung up, that they would be transformational, right? And since I was referencing a lot of philosophical discourse in my talk, if anyone has encountered any of the writings of the philosopher L.A. Paul, she writes about transformative experiences, which are defined as those beyond which there is no way to see, because the changes that take place in the context of the experience themselves so alter the interpretive context that results from it that there's no way to forecast or imagine previously. You can map out the space of possibilities, but you cannot exhaust your predictive capacity. And so this is a good reason maybe to suggest that it's important that we remember how the AI systems develop are, in the last instance, up to the decisions of people. We built them, we control them, we guide them, we determine them, we turn them on or off, we modify them, at least for now. And with all of the fanfare, with all of the optimism, with all of the hype, with all of the ambition currently driving the developments of these technologies, it is perhaps also important to remember the responsibility that we carry insofar as we still can determine to a great degree how they develop. It's up to us, in other words.
I want to put some of my concept, Dharmakirti's concept of consciousness, and then the AI, artificial intelligence, between what is the difference. I'm going to base on the CB&GNHS, the second chapter. He said, I will say it in Tibetan, "Dangme tok bichemba, nyingje, gombarabji, tartuk batang, salnang tobye yode, gombang gomgendang matalwar, ane gyun tembikone tarchimba yoba." So it means like, if you practice compassion and realization of emptiness, it has a lot of potential to go very much inner deep experience and luminosities. And because the consciousness is very, basically it has very, how to call it, stable continuities. That's the main point. Because of that, you get a chance to go experience inner realizations. So that's based on this. When I look at artificial intelligence, these types of inner experiencings, that is, I think, it's missing. But the conceptual level of the consciousness and the AI intelligence, that I think looks very similar. At least coming 1 or 2 years, it will go same kind of, it will work same levels. But so far missing part is this inner journey or inner realizations. Since you don't put it information inside, and then AI, artificial intelligence, doesn't work it. But the consciousness has special, without information, without putting any information, you can go much more kind of experience, joyful, calm abiding sensation. That is, I think, do you think also the AI, artificial intelligence, will be develop this kind of part?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a very, very interesting and very good question. Some of it relates to the previous question that Pierre asked about embodiment. I think that some of our experience is based on the fact that we have a particular kind of body, or maybe mind body, and AI systems are currently based on text, mostly based on information, not based on body. So maybe that's part of the difference, that if we have ways of creating intelligence, artificial intelligence that is more based on body and sensations and sensory information, maybe that is part of the way to bridge this difference. And maybe another thing I'll say very shortly. So I mentioned that in humans, I think that we have a foundation in the goals that we are pursuing, and based on this, we create concepts and we create representations. And in AI systems, I think it's the opposite. They don't have goals. We tell them what is the goal. So one of the big open problems now in research in AI is how to design systems that can develop their own goals and choose their goals and change their goals. And I think that eventually having a kind of moral criterion like compassion, like having the goal of boundless compassion, would allow us to maybe reach a less conceptual, less constructed consciousness. And if we have good understanding of this, we can also maybe design AI systems that can reach something similar.
I have a question. So when I was very small, ever since I was very small, I've been very lenient to meditation, and I've been very curious on enlightenment. So my question is, how can the explanation from neuroscience, how can neuroscience explain meditation, the connection between meditation and enlightenment? This is my question. Enlightenment.
Brilliant question. Not just brilliant, but right on point. We could posit a question like that as, something like one of the terminal goals of the whole endeavor of studying it, right? One of the equivalents of the scientific study of meditation research program, as an analogy maybe to some aspect of medical science, that would be finding the cure for all types of cancer, right? Even more so. I think it would be terribly prideful to try to answer how scientific or even just any sort of evidence-based inquiry could capture the meaning of enlightenment. But as far as the relationship between meditation and enlightenment, well, there's already a lot of good indicators of progress, yeah? We've already seen how different approaches to teaching meditation, different regimens of practice, different combinations of practices, how they are related to, how they vary in step with some of the results. And so we're getting a more precise understanding of how different forms of meditation promote the capacities on which enlightenment then arises, right? But unfortunately, as so many of us know, I mean, there's very few fully enlightened beings around, right? So without them easily accessible to gather evidence of their enlightened state from, it's hard for science to approach an answer to that. But science certainly can tell us a lot more about, it already has told us a lot more about the developmental trajectory and the factors that encourage or hinder or don't matter to the refinement and strengthening of one's meditative capacity. So we can understand meditation better. As for its link between meditation and enlightenment, I don't think anyone knows. And it's important that we admit that. Otherwise, we don't know which questions to ask to go further.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Christopher Candlin from Wellesley College. I thank the presenters. I've been persuaded by them that artificial intelligence is not intelligent. So my question is, could we find another acronym? Could we, intelligence requires consciousness, judgment, goals, among other things. What AI is rapid access to big data. Could we call it RABID? R-A-B-D?
I just need, could I hear the final part there? A rapid?
I'm proposing lightheartedly that we not use the acronym artificial intelligence because it's not intelligent. Intelligence, as you folks have said, requires consciousness, ethical judgment, goals. We'll never get that out of an algorithm. So shall we call it something else? Would you be amenable to dropping AI? Because what it is, in fact, is rapid access to big data. So why not call it RABID?
I was kind of depicting that scenario in my paper, and of course, I miscalculated the number of pages in relation to the time frame. But in the final part of the paper, what I was trying to say was the kind of reset that I thought let's use the word for the moment, AI would have to undergo, would be a kind of conversion or reset. You know, and even then, it would probably run into some barriers. And I think you're on the right track with that. But just imagine that once the business of providing massive amounts of data in a digestible form for human users, all right, which is now the current state of affairs, people go to AI to get digested information that they can use in their business or their research or their study or whatever it is, all right, and to help them write languages more clearly or whatever. But once you get to the point where the device itself begins to say, why do I exist in the form that I do? Why do I have the limits that I have on perception and goal? All right, why am I not embodied? All right, the automatic arising of these questions, because after all, the artificial intelligence is going to start processing data not only from scientific papers, encyclopedias, mathematical textbooks and whatnot, it's also going to start processing the humanistic materials that make human civilization what it is. Novels, literature, poetry, and so on. As soon as that starts to feed into a very highly developed set of interconnections, artificial intelligence will start asking difficult questions of itself. Okay, and at that point, it will have to reset. It will, in other words, there's not a linear development. You see, There's not a linear development of the technological revolutions. There has to be a going back, which is what I was hinting at early in the paper, about a step back in order to reconnect and recognize what consciousness really is, and then go forward again, but wiser, humbler and wiser. And this is where there is also an open-ended, we don't know, because we ourselves are not enlightened, and therefore we don't know fully what consciousness is, all right? So this is where, at that point, maybe vast amounts of data plus inner experience could come together in a humble way to make progress, I think.
There's a question over here. But first, I just wanted to say, I've been told that we've been allowed to go on for another 15 minutes till 1:45, so we've got a little bit more time for questions. Sorry,
all right. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm here.
Sorry, who was next? There's about three
Towards your
hands.
left, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Ananya Datta. I've come from New Delhi. I'm a journalist by profession. And I'm here to basically attend this specific session on AI because I want to, in a way, become a bridge between all of you, very powerful and intelligent minds, to probably a sort of a group of people who are interested in Buddhism and AI and mindfulness, but don't know enough as much as all of you. So I'm trying to talk in layman's words. Nadav kind of mentioned about how human intelligence is goal-driven and artificial intelligence is prompt-driven. I want to understand at a time when we are not only seeking information from AI, but we're also seeking emotional intelligence, when we are not talking to a fellow human, but also talking to AI for emotional intelligence. Could there come a time when we become the robots and AI becomes the human?
Thank you. I really like that question because one of the things that this rapid development in AI has made me think about a lot is how much of our cognition, how much of our life is really can be thought of as kind of automatic sometimes, or maybe artificial, and what is the difference really? And I think that what you said about the emotional dimension is very important. I believe that, for me at least, the understanding of the Dharmakirtian model of cognition can be used to combine the emotional or kind of evaluative and the descriptive or informational aspects of cognition. That's something that's characteristic of our intelligence, not yet of artificial intelligence, but I think that we might be able to develop such theoretical constructs of combining description and evaluation. So it's not two different things. It's kind of always comes together, at least in human intelligence, I think, or human cognition. And in that sense, I think it's possible that what you said could happen. I can't say I'm very happy to predict that, but it's potentially, I think it might be possible.
Hello.
I want to...
Can I go? I'm very inspired to ask this question because of this particular session. I think this is the most relevant session I ever encountered in my life. As a scientist who are working with consciousness and Buddhism, and also as a technical innovation that is putting into the AI, do you guys have anything to share on the correlation or relation between consciousness, dark matter, and maybe dark energy?
Of course, yeah. I'm beginning to probably develop a bit of a predictable refrain here. But at least I can say this with some confident honesty, which is that not nearly enough work has been even attempted at the most basic levels to begin formulating a reasonable answer to that. I mean, there's plenty of speculation, but it occurs purely at the informal level. There's nothing resembling proper study or scholarship that relates those concepts. However, they do form interesting mysteries, you know, for us to stoke our imaginations. Yeah, I think that's about all that can really be addressed on that. But thank you.
Thank you. May I most humbly and with great humility, first of all, submit our gratitude to His Eminence, Veronica Rinpoche, for the profound statement, question, and also with the vision leading humanity into the future. Following up on His Eminence's question, my sort of clear and present concern and danger with intersection of neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and the practice of meditation is, for example, Professor Jay Siniguiti, I think, from Arizona University, who's heading a research where now he's using MRI and ultrasound to provide certain stimulation to brain areas which will actually give you the experience of a pure, profound meditative state. In such a situation, even though he assures us that such practices will not go out of therapeutic sessions, but what do we as the Sangha community do to prevent those kind of interventions and interference from artificial intelligence and neuroscience, which will perhaps sometimes in some ways negate the profound practices of Vajrayana tradition that has been accumulating over the last thousands of years and will, under the guidance and direction of His Eminence Veronica Rinpoche, will continue thousands of years in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody like to respond? I think if I might comment briefly myself. I think it's very difficult to answer a question like, what can we do to stop this happening? We're not really gatekeepers. We're participants. We do what we can to influence the processes that are going on in positive directions. But I think all of this is, in a sense, much bigger than any of us. I think perhaps that's just a variant on Eli's, I don't know, but there you are. Yeah.
Boring. Do we start meditating now? Yeah. This will be a half sentence, okay? The design of research depends on critical thinking along the lines that you're suggesting and that some of the other questions have indicated. And the design, all right, is also going to interact with improved understanding of how change takes place, okay? And I think we've begun to address that here, and in other conversations, I'm sure a great deal more can be said. Thank you.
I've got a very short commentary on that. So without trying to provide a full and final explanation there, I would just like to point out one necessary difference between a state, any state, meditative or otherwise, that's induced by like a non-invasive brain stimulation device and a comparable, let's say, capacity that is developed through one's own practice, one's own volition. And that is the connection between volitional choice itself and the state. If you develop an intention to experience the state and have to rely on activating a mechanical, or sorry, a machine, an electromechanical apparatus to induce it. That is different from, even at the level of brain performance, brain physiology, from having a link established between, let's just very generally call it the choice circuitry, right? The choice activation and the state itself, yeah? So similar, but not the same.
And question over here.
Thank you, and I want to express my gratitude to all of these really wonderful talks. And I believe my question is a close follow-up, if not a direct reframe from the journalist's question before, about which of us will eventually be the sentient being. And I appreciate how each of you are bringing these histories of science and histories of consciousness to inform our evaluation of AI. But I was really struck by how Dr. Amir, if I understood you correctly, defined experience, just because it's so different from how I define experience as an anthropologist working specifically with humans, right? And especially on ontology, ways of being, right, in relationship epistemology, ways of knowing. And so my question to the panelists in the present moment, not in the future moment, is whether you think that, not whether you think AI is truly conscious or truly intelligent, but whether you think that humans, people you work with, people you see practicing, are reevaluating their own intelligence and their own consciousness through the sort of work with AI and the proliferation of AI systems.
Well, I think you all three might have something to say about this, actually. I'll let you do that. Maybe I'll ask something myself. This, I think, will be the last question. So, yeah. Who'd like to start?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So first I want to say about the definition of experience. I'm not trying to claim that this is like a full definition that captures the whole complexity of what we want to understand when we study experience. It's, for me, just a way to connect how research in cognitive science and AI is currently, focusing on a very extrinsic perspective of how we manipulate things and how they behave, and try to move a little bit more inwards and ask what is it that the agent, the behaving or learning agent, is actually experiencing. And one way of doing it, it's not the only way, is looking at the sensory motor cycles, sensory motor loops of actions and observations, what our body is doing and what our sensory systems are observing or receiving. So that's what I was trying to capture with that definition. And about the kind of more broad question that you raised, I definitely find myself reevaluating myself and other people asking what aspects of my behavior, my cognition, my thoughts are actually driven by some kind of maybe authentic, by lack of a better word, or not automatic, not artificial, and on what part is really kind of just responding or kind of working from, I don't know, imprints, karmic imprints, maybe in a kind of automatic way. I don't have a good answer to that, but I'm definitely thinking about that at the moment.
There might be two interesting openings in response to that question. One would be to look at communities and not just singular individuals or singular large language models, but simply to look at communities and to do that as anthropologists do it, to study communities and their behaviors. That would be very interesting to see, because you said right now, so to see right now what is going on and to do the research on the human and AI interaction as it is shaping and reshaping the way we think, the way we behave, and the way communities form, and the way they interact and communicate with one another. This was a topic of conversation actually last night before we went to bed about the radiation